Hey everyone, I'm here today taking a look at the Jurassic World Dino Trackers Habitat Defender Triceratops from Mattel. Here's the packaging. It's not particularly interesting. There's kind of a desert design in the background there. There's a big chunk of the packaging is advertising this eco thing. That's kind of the newest gimmick that these companies are jumping on. You see dino trackers and all that in the bottom. And then on the back it just shows the dinosaur and more marketing there, pretending that they care about the environment. This is the newest Triceratops from Mattel, and they've basically answered fan demands who have wanted a bigger Triceratops ever since the start of the line 5 years ago. And I'm going to do comparisons pretty much straight away because the main gimmick of this Triceratops is the size. So here is the original Triceratops that we got back in 2018, the first one, that Roarivores size. So you can see just how much smaller that is compared to this new one. I mean, look at the size difference there. The new one's also a much nicer sculpt as well, but this one's massive in comparison. But I also wanted to compare it with the original Kenner Triceratops from the 1993 Jurassic Park line. And you can see this one is even smaller too. I thought they were going to be about the same size, but the new one is actually bigger than the Kenner Triceratops. It's a little bit taller. Like the hump at the back makes it taller at the back there. This thing looks fantastic. It's got a great sculpt and paint job. You can see they've got the paint detailing all along the side here on these scales. Not all the scales are painted. There are a few on the front leg there that haven't been painted this kind of pinky colour that the ones on the back have. And also going down the back, you can see they're painted at the front of the body there, but then as you go kind of down the tail, they become unpainted. So there are a few spots that they've kind of cheaped out on there, but for the most part, most of the details are all painted really nicely, and those little bits that have been missed out on don't really bother me too much. They don't stand out too much. This still looks great. All the toenails are painted. They've really put in the effort. This almost looks like a Hammond collection level paint job. Like there's some nice fading of the different browns as it gets lighter in the middle there and darker on the crest. The beak has been painted top and bottom. Really lovely looking. For articulation, the tail, which you have to plug in when you buy this, and it's not removable once you plug it in, but the tail kind of revolves around all over the place, like that. As does the head. So you can get it quite far down so it looks like it's grazing, and it can look up quite well as if it's looking up at a T-Rex that's about to attack it, and going kind of left and right there too. And the mouth opens and closes, which is pretty cool. You can see the tongue's all painted inside there. But where it lets me down is that the legs only go forward and backwards. There's no outward pivot on any of the legs. And this is really rare because normally there's always, even if it's just on the back legs, they will pivot outwards. But on this they won't, and they won't on the front either. And a lot of these four-legged dinosaurs lately have had an outward pivot on the front and the back, where there's kind of a hinge so you can have the legs go outwards. But these do not move outwards at all, only forward and backwards, which gives it a bit of a cheap feel. Even though everything else on it is great, I mean the paint job's great, it looks good, it's nice and big, but there's no electronics in this, it doesn't make any sounds, there's no action feature either, so that they couldn't even put a pivot on the legs to go outwards, it seems like cheaping out a bit to me, especially because in the UK this was £54. That's quite a bit of money, £54 for this. And it's got pretty minimal articulation, no electronics and no action feature. So I thought that was quite a lot of money. I actually wasn't expecting it. I saw it on the shelf in the toy store and just grabbed it. And when the woman at the checkout said, "That's £54 please," I was kind of taken aback. I wasn't expecting it to be quite that much for something that's pretty basic in terms of any gimmicks that come with it. Normally Jurassic World dinosaurs that are that expensive in the 50s have an action feature at least, or electronics, or both. You think of the T-Rexes, they nearly always have electronics and an action feature built in. This doesn't have anything like that. So I don't know where the money's gone on it. But if they're going to continue being this expensive, I'm going to be cutting back on what I buy. For £54, really, I would have wanted this to have Hammond level articulation, if it's not going to have any electronics or action features. And I'd rather have the articulation, but that it doesn't even have the articulation, you know, it's really nice as a display piece. It looks great, but that kind of let me down, considering the price of it. I was a bit shocked. Here's a look at the other side. It really does look fantastic, even though the articulation thing bothers me. I mean, it looks great. It's definitely the best Triceratops we've had. Not just because it's bigger, but the sculpting looks nicer than the other ones we've had, and on all the paint details. It looks kind of premier until you start getting into it and not having that much articulation. But it's also got the app code on the back there. I don't know if anyone still uses that. And I've said it before, but I don't really like how it slides out, 'cause you end up with this weird notch. I thought it was better when it was just a sticker on the bottom of the feet, really. I think this really does look like it could be a Hammond collection dinosaur with the sculpting. It's so nice. I really like the colour as well. It looks more kind of realistic, really, than a lot of the smaller Triceratopses we've had. I think this is more the colour it was in the first film. So you can kind of have it laying down as if it's ill. But because the legs don't pivot, the legs are just kind of sticking up like that. You know, if the legs pivoted a bit, you could fold them down so it looked more like it's actually resting naturally. Which has got this sort of yellowy pattern along the bottom there, which is a separate bit of plastic for the most part. It's stuck on there, but it gives a nice effect of the underside of the belly being a lighter colour. And for the final comparison, here it is with the T-Rex, and this is the Hammond Collection T-Rex, which I think it looks the best with. The Triceratops is actually bigger than I was expecting it to be. I didn't think they were going to make it quite this big. I don't know if it's a little bit too big. I mean, I guess I don't really know what size they were compared to a T-Rex in real life, but it almost seems a tiny bit too big. But it's not really that big a deal. They still look good together. And I think they actually look better on camera together than they do when I put them together in person. The Triceratops looked a bit too big, but when I look at it through the screen, they actually look pretty cool together. So finally we can have a decent battle between the T-Rex and the Triceratops. And I'm surprised this hasn't happened in the movies. Like, is it just me that thinks that that's kind of a quintessential dinosaur battle that we should have seen? I think I had a book when I was a kid, a dinosaur book, where there was a drawing of a T-Rex and a Triceratops fighting, and it always stuck in my head. And that was just something that I wanted to see on screen. That was just a quintessential dinosaur battle, and yet in none of the Jurassic Park movies, or even the Camp Cretaceous cartoon, have they done that, and I don't know why. That seemed like an obvious thing to me, but is it just me? Did anyone else want to see a Triceratops and a T-Rex battling? Like, they had time to give us locusts and cloned little girls that I didn't really care about. I'd have rather seen this going on, or the Spinosaurus returning or something. But for some reason we got locusts and cloned little girls instead. Maybe it's just me. Definitely the best Triceratops we've had. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for this original Kenner one, even though the body's not really accurate in the shape of it. I've always liked the head sculpt on that, but this one has definitely surpassed it. Best Triceratops we've had from Jurassic World or Jurassic Park toy line. I mean, I guess you can use this little one as a juvenile now. And I kind of like that this one scales up with the Kenner one. You could just have those two together, and because they're reasonably the same size, they don't look too bad. Thanks for joining me for this look at the Habitat Defender Triceratops. Even though the articulation bothers me and the price, it is actually a great looking Triceratops. And actually bringing it out here and posing it with the T-Rex has made me appreciate it more. I kind of came out here with a bit more of a negative view of it before doing the review, but playing around with it out here, I really like it now. So You know, I still think it's overpriced considering there's not much to it outside of the size and the sculpt, but it does look great. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.